All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the January 18th meeting of the Milford Planning and Zoning Board. If we could please have the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America.
For which it
To
stands,
the republic for which it stands,
under God,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Meg, if you would, please call the roll.
Ms. Austin,
Present.
Mr. Castagnoli, Mr. Hirsch,
Here.
Mr. Cater,
Present.
Mr. Collegian,
Present.
Mr. Mortimer,
Present.
Mr. Moore, Mr. Sadi,
Present.
Mr. Zagorides,
Here.
and Chairman Quish.
I am also present, and we do see Mr. Castagnoli.
Very good.
At the request of the city attorney, he's asked that we hear the executive session first, and so I would entertain a motion to go into executive session, discussion of Connecticut Post Limited Partnership versus Milford Planning and Zoning Board. It's a lawsuit, docket number AAN-CV 21-604-5201-S.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, we will go into executive session.
Okay, Mr. Chair, do you want me to attend that?
Yes, I
Okay,
would.
very good. I'll send the invite now.
That's a separate,
Yeah, you're going to get a separate invite into a breakout room.
and it will show up on our calendars, correct?
It's going to show up on your screen and you're going to click on it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay, let's see here. Did you get the invite? No, huh?
Okay.
Okay, the regular meeting will be starting shortly. For those who've been patiently waiting.
David,
Yes,
we have one of the applications where the applicant has requested a postponement. Is that correct?
that is correct. 615 Plains Road.
So if anybody here is interested in 615 Plains Road, there is no reason to hang around because we will not hear that at this meeting.
And I will put the agenda up. So,
We don't need to do a roll call again, is that correct?
correct.
Okay. So the next order of business is new business, Marceline Lane, Colberg Estates, R12-5, request of Tom Colucci, Colberg LLC for bond release for work associated with the subdivision known as Colberg Estates, in accordance with the memo from Greg Podolsky, city engineer, to David Sulkus, city planner, dated December 13th, 2021. David, if you would represent this piece of business.
Yeah, just by way of background, when the board approves a subdivision or a big development, often there is a bond required for the public portion, which would be the streets and the sidewalks and the storm drains. So in this particular case, they have done everything that has been required of them. And the city engineer recommends the release of the existing funds.
Okay, is there any questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Sadi, for you to Mr. Sulkus, do we have to put the amount of the bond in the motion, Mr. Sulkus?
You could, let me look here.
It's 55,071 according to your administrative summary.
Yes, yes, then you can place that in the motion if you'd like.
So this is
Mr.
100%, this is 100% of the bond, not a portion.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Did I hear a motion?
This question, I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented the petition request of Tom Colucci, Colberg LLC for bond release in the amount of $55,071 for work associated with the subdivision known as Colberg Estates, in accordance with the memo from Greg Podolsky, city engineer, David Sulkus, city planner, dated December 13th of 2021.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
With Joseph. All right, with Joseph. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Meg, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Austin,
With the motion.
Mr. Cassignoli,
Yes.
Mr. Hirsch,
With the motion.
Mr. Cater,
With the motion,
Mr. Collegian,
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
With the motion,
Mr. Zaharidis,
With the motion.
and Chairman Cush.
I'm also with the motion, passes unanimously. Next order of business is public hearing closed by February 22, vote by March 30th, 22. Proposed regulation change 21-8, petition of John Nuff Esquire for a change to Article 3, Section 318.2 and 318.5, Corridor Design Development District 3, CDD 3, Article 5, Supplementary Regulations, Section 5.1, Parking and Loading Regulations to allow multifamily housing on map 25, block 207, parcel 50A, of which Casey Associates Limited Partnership is the owner. The applicant has the floor.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office at 147 Broad Street here in Milford, and I'm here tonight on behalf of CDP Milford LLC And this is an application to amend the CDD 3 regulations. You noted, Mr. Chairman, that this is to permit multifamily development on the property that's owned by the Casey family. I want to be really, really clear. This is only a regulation amendment. There's no special permit, there's no site plan. And yes, indeed, it is to create the opportunity to bring forward a special permit and site plan application, but there is no special permit or site plan application before you this evening, only a regulation amendment to the CDD 3 regulations. My client, however, is the contract purchaser of the property at 589 Bridgeport Avenue. As we all know, this is on the southerly side of Bridgeport Avenue. Consists of a number of buildings, including Walgreens, Taco Bell, a small strip center with a liquor store, Ocean State, the vacant Kmart, and other vacant retail space. I think we all know that this development has seen better days. As we noted, it is owned by the Casey family. And my firm is proud to have represented the Caseys for literally decades with regard to this property. The Caseys are a fixture in the city of Milford. As I'm sure many of you know, John Casey, who is now deceased, was the city attorney, the city engineer for many, many years. And so there have been, as anyone driving by the sites, as we all have on multiple occasions, know that there are multiple hurdles to overcome for the to create a new development on this property. Because listen, everyone who goes by the site for years has desire for redevelopment of this property, as have the Casey family. So this is a really wonderful opportunity, and it's been a really long time coming. The desire to redevelop this property really goes hand in hand with the longstanding efforts to revitalize Devon. I think the Devon revitalization probably started in the early 1990s. And certainly there have been a number of successes in Devon, but progress such as the Bridge House or Dockside have been hard won, generally because the parcels in this area are really very small. Most of the parcels along Bridgeport Avenue, with the exception of this one at 589, are really very, very small. So it's really difficult to make a giant leap in the redevelopment of this area, given that small parcel size. So while our site may not technically be is not technically a part of Devon, it is certainly within close proximity, and simply by nature of its size has a significant impact on Devon and the surrounding area. The only question is whether that impact is positive or negative. We believe that the requested regulation amendment and the redevelopment opportunity it presents offers the best opportunity to create a true positive impact and to take that giant leap of transforming this part of the city, not only on this parcel, but also by creating momentum for the transformation of other nearby properties as well. So the challenges then are the following: how to transform this property, but to do so in a way that first includes a use for which we know there's a demand, second, acknowledges and is respectful of the adjacent single-family residential zones and Jonathan Law High School, and three, maintains the integrity of the Bridgeport Avenue commercial frontage. The proposed regulation amendment satisfies those criteria. Specifically, the proposed amendment proposes to the addition of multifamily residential under very specific circumstances in the CDD3 zone. It proposes to maintain the commercial frontage, the commercial corridor along Bridgeport Avenue in the zone. It proposes to ensure that multifamily is accompanied by a significant, tangible improvements to the remaining commercial buildings along Bridgeport Ave, and ensures that any multifamily development is extremely attractive, accomplishes a transition between commercial properties along Bridgeport Avenue and the single-family residential to our south, and offers plenty of amenities to attract residents who will frequent other area restaurants and shops and be a catalyst for new ones in this area. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to quickly take you through the regulation amendment itself. David, I can share my screen and go through the reg amendment, or perhaps you would prefer to do so. But regardless, we're going to be working from the draft that's available online and created by David and his staff. David, you're muted.
I hardly ever mute myself. Sorry. Do you want to show it or do you want me to show it? Makes
Yeah, I
sense.
mean, it's probably easier for me because I'm just gonna, I'll scroll through it and I'll comment on it as I scroll.
Okay. Yeah, you should. There you go.
Okay. I'm assuming we can all see this now?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. So this is the proposed regulation amendment as to 3.18.2.14. And so I just want to go through, in this case, pretty much sentence by sentence and just describing what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. So this is in the use section of the CDD3 regulations, and we're adding a use: multifamily residential buildings are permitted subject to the following conditions and safeguards. 1, multifamily residential buildings shall be permitted as part of an application for the development of a lot containing a minimum of 15 acres and a minimum of 600 feet of frontage on Bridgeport Avenue. So this ensures that there's no sort of small infill residential projects in the zone. It also recognizes that it's larger sites such as ours that really need assistance in creating a redevelopment. You know, smaller sites, you know, have the opportunity to perhaps bring in a small shop or restaurant, but we all know that the market for large format retail and big box retail is facing significant challenges. The next sentence says, for the purposes of this subsection, development shall mean the removal or renovation of all existing structures containing 5 or more commercial establishments within a single structure to be replaced by new or altered structures devoted to commercial use and complying with the architectural standards for exterior building materials set forth in section 5.16.1. So the idea here is to specifically tie together any proposed multifamily with a significant enhancement to the remaining commercial buildings on the site. And as you'll see in a minute, those remaining commercial buildings have to be fronted along Bridgeport Avenue. Next sentence. And here's the connection. No zoning permit shall be issued by the zoning enforcement officer for multifamily residential buildings approved under this section unless or until a zoning permit for any portion of the commercial development has also been issued. So the idea here is that you can't simply come forward with a special permit application for the multifamily and maybe a special permit application for the commercial as well, and then build the multifamily and walk away from your commercial obligations. You have to do both. Such multifamily buildings shall be limited to efficiency, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom dwelling units. This is consistent with many of the other corridor design district regulations, including CDD1 and CDD2. The maximum number of dwelling units shall not exceed 17 units per acre. This is actually far less dense than the requirements in the CDD1, CDD2, as well as other zones. The maximum building area coverage shall be 25%. In the this is for the residential portion. In the CDD3 is currently 50%, so less dense than what is otherwise permitted. Maximum lot coverage shall be 75%, and maximum floor area ratio shall be 1.0. Those are consistent with your existing regulations. No building shall exceed 3 stories nor 40 feet in height. That is consistent with the CDD3 zone, as well as other corridor design district regulations regarding multifamily developments. A development plan approved under this section may be subdivided, provided that any resulting parcel containing multifamily residential buildings shall be at least 10 acres in size, and the dwelling unit density does not exceed 17 units per acre. So same thing, it just creates the opportunity to for sale of the residential portion of a larger commercial development that has gone through the significant enhancement as required by this regulation. Now, number 7, this one's important. Multifamily residential buildings shall be set back from Bridgeport Avenue a minimum of 200 feet. When we get to it, the concept site plan, you'll see how this actually plays out. But what it does, it addresses particularly the challenged sites, or in this case, the sites that is rather deep along Bridgeport Avenue. I think if you scroll through Google Maps or the city's GIS system, you'll see that there are very few, if any, properties along Bridgeport Avenue, either in the CDD3 or the CDD2 zone, that have the depth that this site has. And that depth creates real issues with regard to creating commercial developments. Such developments may include accessory structures. Obviously, you want to create amenity space for the residents. And then with regard to the last, what we want to do in this section, number 9, is to create a really attractive development, residential developments of the proper scale that will appeal to a variety of residents. And when I say variety of residents, we're talking about singles, divorce, empty nesters, young couples, snowbirds, the typical families in transition that would likely be inhabiting, most multifamily developments. So here's what's required. No more than 36 dwelling units should be provided in a single multifamily building. Pitched roofs shall be provided for any multifamily building, clubhouse, or garage. Articulated building facades. Multifamily residential buildings shall include a mix of materials, including New England style design, including by way of example, siding, shake type siding, and board and batten siding. No less than 50% of dwellings shall have a balcony of at least 36 square feet in size. Indoor residential communities amenities, by way of example, shall include clubhouse, fitness center, cinema, co-working space, prep kitchen, again, trying to be as attractive as possible to a wide range of clientele. Outdoor residential communities amenities such as resort quality pool, cabanas, fire pit, hammock park, and lawn game area, and then EV charging stations and bike system. Again, the whole goal is to help create a pedestrian scaled walkable community that appeals to a variety of residents from all walks of life. In addition to that regulation amendment, we are also proposing to obviously add the CDD3 multifamily in the parking requirements and mimicking the parking requirements as found in the CDD1, CDD2, and the MCDD zone. So that's the proposed regulation amendment. I'm going to stop sharing the regulation amendment for a second and show you a concept plan that exhibits these various components. So, oops. All right, can we all see the, let me see.
No.
Okay, here we go.
You stop. Yeah, okay, there we go.
Yep, here we go. All right, so here is a concept plan based upon the regulation amendment I just described. Just to orient everybody, Bridgeport Avenue is at the top of the sheet. We have Lansdale Avenue along the west. That is in this area here. This is Jonathan Law High School. You'll note that there are single-family residential properties surrounding the site. You'll note that the Enterprise Rent-A-Car is not part of our property, but the other two commercial properties are Walgreens and Taco Bell. What this proposes to do is to completely redevelop this front corner. As you know, that there is probably some, and we have some photographs of the existing conditions in a minute, but this strip center up front is really front and center on this property, even though the property is rather quite large. This building right here sort of sets the stage for the rest of this rather large parcel. And so we paid particular attention to how that would be treated. The existing Ocean State and Dollar Tree would remain in place. And then the balance of the property, as you see, is very comfortably outfitted with several multifamily residential buildings. And what you're seeing here, this yellow line, is a potential lot line. As I said, we could create a minimum of 10 acres on this parcel that could be sold, but this would still continue to operate as generally as a whole. But this is a concept plan that reflects the regulation amendment that I just described. I have a couple of experts with us tonight. One is Wayne Violet. He is a landscape architect with BL Companies, and he just wants to say a few words with regard to the opportunities to create a more pedestrian scale with regard to landscape, hardscape, and with regard to that his expertise, and then we can talk more specifically about the architecture. So Wayne.
Thank you, Attorney Neff. This is Wayne Violet, Senior Landscape Architect with BL Companies. As Attorney Neff just mentioned, I wanted to highlight a few of the goals and opportunities with this potential redevelopment of this site. As we can see, and as we're focused in here towards the front of the site, we have an opportunity to make a statement. Oftentimes we start at the curb appeal, the front door. How are we making a statement at the gateway into this particular site? As mentioned, and as we're going to be seeing, contemporary architecture certainly is a certain facet that will help enhance this Route 1 corridor. But with landscaping, potential signage, and lighting at the entryway, this is a key note, a key gateway into this particular site. It's highlighted there with some schematic landscaping shown. We think that's going to go a long way on welcoming visitors, residents, and the community into this particular frontage of the site. And as we can see with the overall concept, it's quite different than what's there now. And there's a lot of good to that, and a lot of goals that we're accomplishing with this kind of initial take at the layout of this particular site. By having a multi-family community here, it's quite a bit different than the sea of pavement, the large expansive pavement that's out there in the retail site, or another potential use, which might be large commercial or industrial. The residential community allows us to create more interesting spaces, a lot more green space. One of the goals that I wanted to highlight that we're making a point with this particular text amendment and push for multifamily is the potential reduction in impervious coverage, the likely increase in infiltration and reduction in runoff. So, approximately we could reduce impervious coverage in this particular area as an example of approximately 20% in comparison to a retail or commercial space in the rear of the site. And not only is it a 20% reduction, but it's also a carving up of spaces, attractively landscaping, creating great amenity zones in between all these particular buildings and around the clubhouse. So it's not only just overall reduction, but this particular layout and something similar to this with a multifamily use can go a long way and really reinvigorate this particular site. Something else I wanted to mention as far as the kind of the goals Attorney Nuff had mentioned before is our respectability with our surrounding uses. So in this initial concept, we make a real strong point to maintain the limits of the current extent of clearing and development. What you kind of see underneath this rendering would be the existing parking area. So we would like to maintain as much of the existing vegetation as possible, really have this multifamily fit in as it was always intended to be there. Of course, in areas where we need to supplement with buffering, we would certainly do so. This is intended to be a well-landscaped, a well-amenity type of community, one that's going to certainly invigorate the site, but also be a pedestrian-friendly, bicycle-friendly, and vehicular-oriented, clear, defined paths as it needs to be. So a few of the goals as it relates to the site layout, including, pedestrian circulation, clear, defined routes for the cars and the vehicles on the particular site, and opportunities to connect multimodal with connecting to Route 1, bike amenities on the particular site. So by potentially approving the text amendment, you could see that this is a very viable use to the site, comfortably staged, comfortably laid out, allowing for plenty of landscaping to occur on this particular site. We think it would be a great fit, a good opportunity for the site to reinvigorate and fit well within what Milford is doing along Route 1 and throughout the city. So I'll pass it back to John and or Tom to walk through some of the architecture.
Thanks, Wayne. One or two other things I want to point out that I omitted. This concept plan is showing 180 units on around 11 acres or so. So as I said, this is far less dense than would otherwise be permitted or required in the CDD1 or CDD2 zone. I mean, you would only need approximately 6 or 7 acres to have the same density in the CDD1 or CDD2. And this is obviously 11 acres for this number of units. You note here they were maintaining this existing curb cut on Lansdale Avenue. We have submitted a traffic letter from BL Companies indicating that even though Bridgeport Avenue has about half the capacity that it can handle in terms of the number of cars traveling, this type of use, the combined remaining commercial plus the proposed residential is far less traffic than if you were to simply re-tenant the existing buildings. So I'm going to stop sharing and then start sharing the architectural, and I'm going to have Tom Scott describe that for you. So give me 1 second. Okay, so I want to introduce Tom Scott. He's an architect with SGA architecture firm. And Tom, let me know, which of your slides you'd like to see. But I thought this one was particularly appropriate to start with because it shows the existing sites and in all its glory, as well as the dramatically improved condition that Tom has designed. Tom.
Thank you, Attorney Nuff. My name's Tom Scott. I'm the architect with Griffin Architects. And I think that the image you have on the screen is the right one to start with. I think what we tried to do here was show comparisons between what's there today and what could be there with a little bit of vision and thought process about the buildings, the scale of the buildings, how to make them more approachable for pedestrians, to make them more present for tenants who want to be there, because that's the key. We want to be able to make sure that we can maintain and attract tenants that find this an attractive facility that is easily accessible and visually pleasing and visually identifiable from the main road, Bridgeport Ave. So I'll start at the top. I guess the top images of the Ocean State job lot from the parking field, kind of within the existing parking field. The existing photo is on the left. We cut off the photo to the right because everything to the right is going to be demolished. We're saving the Dollar Tree in the Ocean State job lot. Slide over to the right. And what we're trying to do here is introduce some more pedestrian scale materials. Brick, we really encourage and want to use the brick as a scaled element. We see a lot of that in other developments in town. So we want to introduce that as an important element. The other thing that we feel strongly about is using other materials that are progressive and modern. So we're using porcelain tile materials and that have texture and color in them as well. So, and then through the use of other elements such as sconce lighting on the building facade, on the pilasters, decorative lighting to illuminate signage. Those are the types of things that we want to do to help improve the look of the existing building. The next photo down, the existing image from Bridgeport Ave, you can see the metal, I guess it would call it like a mansard roof element. That is a very dated element that was used widely back in like the 70s and 80s. I mean, that has gone out and by away many, many years ago. So, and you can see that the building itself has a very low appearance. There's nothing kind of drawing you in. There's no vibrance. There's no pedestrian scale to it. So the image to the right of it, our building A and B perspective, kind of gives you the sense of what we're going to do. Our proposal is to improve the presence on the roadway, to increase the height along this edge of the building as well, maybe in a stepped manner or multi-stepped manner to give each tenant their own identity. So we're hopeful that we can attract larger tenants that will want to be here, and then the pedestrian and the public will want to visit and come to the site often. You can see in the background the job lot. There's one edge of the job lot building that faces Bridgeport Ave as well, and we decided to treat that with the same materials that are on the face of the job lot that faces the parking field. they lack the ability to really have a presence on Bridgeport Ave. But this facade right here steps out from behind the small building in front. And just that little piece, you can see it in the image to the left, and then the image to the right is an enlargement of it. By just kind of exploding that piece of the building a little bit, putting some fabric awnings on it, putting some modern materials in brick and human scaled elements to it, all of a sudden it feels like something that really wants to draw you into the site. So we're excited about bringing improvements to the site, making this a viable and approachable facility that will support the balance of the rest of the project, the residential project, and be something that is really the beginning of the new town improving. The last image is just the one at the very bottom that kind of steps back and gives you kind of a perspective, the overall approach, the drive-in. We have the pylon sign will get upgraded with similar materials to the buildings. We have a nice view kind of looking right into the site. You can see the job lot sign in the distance, so it's very visible. People driving by will clearly see that the job lot at that stage, is a viable tenant there. And then the tenants, of course, on Bridgeport Ave. Again, the image on the left, you see all the materials that we've selected. We're using, brick and modern finishes like porcelain tile, but scaled porcelain tile, not a blank slate of porcelain tile, but porcelain tile that has a pattern and has some imagery. So, and of course, the color palette is huge as well. So I think this really brings us into this century and, into kind of a new way of thinking about architecture going forward, especially for the commercial property. So thank you for your time. Back to Attorney Dow.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tom. One interesting thing is in the regulation amendment, we referenced 5.16.1 and the architectural requirements. And you might say, well, you're required to comply with those anyway. But 5.16.1 actually has a waiver provision. And so what we've done in our regulation is to eliminate the ability to request a waiver of those requirements. We are making it obligatory that we comply with those architectural requirements. And that's what I think Tom has done in a really magnificent fashion here. As we indicated, we have sort of a narrow frontage on Bridgeport Avenue once you take away the two existing retail buildings of Walgreens and Taco Bell. So, this is a really wonderful opportunity in a rather narrow frontage to really set a whole new stage for this property. And the last thing I want to do is show to you some potential, just to give you a feel of what a residential community may look like that complies with the regulations. So me. So there's one such image, and I'm sorry, but these have come to me in separate photographs. So here's one such design. But that's not the same one. I apologize. Can you see this one as well? The with the car in the front here. So the whole idea is that picking up on what Tom is doing with regard to the commercial up front, using a variety of materials to create a really attractive residential community, breaking up the frontage, including balconies, peaked roofs that will nicely fit in with the pedestrian scale of the surrounding community. So that's the regulation amendments. That's the concept plans and the architectural plans that accompany that. I think it's important to note that when you consider a regulation amendment. You are acting in a legislative capacity. You have great discretion. What you are required to do by statute is to consider the plan of conservation development. And we have submitted a memo indicating those provisions in the POCD that support that. You're also required to ensure that a regulation amendment is consistent with your comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is found in your regulations and it's found in your zone map. And the fact that multifamily residential is permitted in the CDD 1, 2, 4, 5, and MCDD, makes the provision of multifamily in the CDD 3 consistent with your regulations and therefore consistent with the comprehensive plan. And in general, there are no negative impacts from this type of development on our neighbors, no negative traffic impacts. It would tremendously support the tax base, not only from perspective of the real property tax values, but also personal property taxes from residents' vehicles. You certainly enhance the appearance of the overall area and will certainly also foster economic development, not only on this parcel, but on the entire western portion of the city of Milford, including Devon, because the infusion of a collection of people at this multifamily project such as this will not only provide customers to the restaurants, the shops that currently exist in the area, but also act as a catalyst for new restaurants and shops. And the last thing I want to share is we have received some really nice letters of support. These are included in your electronic packet, if not in your hard copy packets. This is from C360 Software and Services, Connecticut Chiropractic, Omni Physical and Aquatic Therapy, JZ Automotive Consulting, Dockside, which is really created a revitalized bookend for the city of Milford, and then the last is from Harry Garofalo from ShopRite. And I'm sure you all know Harry. He's another tremendous fixture in the city of Milford, and he is supportive as well. So I think we've given you a lot to think about, a lot to digest in a fairly short amount of time. I'm here with with Tom and Wayne and some others, and so we'd be happy to answer any questions or engage in a dialogue with the board.
Thank you, Attorney Duff, and to the team that presented. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I have some questions for Attorney Nuff, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Attorney Nuff, thank you very much for the excellent presentation, and thank you to the other members of your team. Just for the record, because we have a couple of divergent documents, did you file an amendment, if you remember, to your original application for the zoning change? Because I only show up to number 8 on one of the documents I'm looking at.
No, yes. Once we submitted the original application, but before the public hearing was noticed, we engaged in a couple of conversations with both David and Joe. They were extremely helpful, and they made some recommendations, and we made some changes at their request. And so the actual regulation amendment that is before you this evening is the one that was the result of those conversations. The one that I walked through this evening is also the one that's available through the city's websites, the online packet, so to speak.
Is there a different date to that one?
This one, yeah, sure. Let me get to the beginning. I'm going to share my screen so you can see this. So this is Amendment 21-8. The date was November 3, 2021, revised 12/9/2021. And this is available on the city's website.
I probably have the copy of November 3rd, and I just saw you 12/9. I had some questions then on the general plan. If you know, Attorney Nuff, how many CDD3 parcels would be involved with the proposal you're making for the zoning change?
The proposed regulations would only apply to one parcel in the CDD3 zone.
That's your parcel, that's because it's 15 acres?
Yes. I think it's about 17, actually.
Okay, and then on the number one, you did change it and you said development shall mean the removal or renovation of all existing structures. We see the pictures, which are fantastic, but approximately how many structures do you expect you could be removing for the purpose of putting up the multifamily units?
Sure. Let me share that screen. Can you see this one now?
Yeah, I
The
have that
site
up in
plan?
front of me too.
Okay, so I mean, essentially, we're cutting off everything after the Dollar Tree. So there's a number of vacant or underutilized commercial buildings that sort of head south, and then obviously there you have the really large Kmart building. So all of that would be demolished and to create the opportunity for the multifamily residential.
I'm looking at number 3, maximum dwelling units shall not exceed 17 units per acre. And it's
Yep.
approximately 17 by 15. It would be 255 units for multifamily dwellings or dwelling units.
Well, here's the important thing, however, and so this got a little bit tricky. So what we needed to do was because there's one parcel currently, we had to make it so that we could comply, as it stands today with one parcel, but also so would comply if we wanted to do a subdivision and create, sort of an 11-acre parcel that you're seeing on the property line there. So yes, but the important thing to understand is that you can never comply with the regulation and the requirement that we maintain the commercial buildings along Bridgeport Avenue and fill the entire site with multifamily. So as a practical matter, because we have that requirement that the minimum distance from any residential building to Bridgeport Avenue has to be 200 feet. So, while yes, in theory that would be possible, we couldn't do that because of this requirement, the 200 feet. So the most units that we would request is 180 as before you.
And again, that would require a site plan application, which we would take up at a different time. But as I'm reading,
special permit and site plan, correct.
but as I'm reading this change, there's nothing that indicates that whatever you have, the existing buildings that you show on the map in front of us, that you can make that all residential.
Well, no, because, and here's why, and thanks for bringing that up. Again, there's a requirement that there be a minimum of 200 feet from Bridgeport Avenue to any residential building. So you could essentially cut a line across this property that I'm drawing here, and anything northward of that line has to remain commercial.
I appreciate that answer. Thank you very much. And I have 2 other questions, Mr. Chair. If we wish to, would you agree that we could put in a requirement of a percentage of it being affordable housing if the housing was going to be used? It's to you, Mr. Nuff.
We would greatly prefer that not to include any affordable units. The idea is to, fully amenitize this site and also to provide, the absolute utmost in terms of, fit and finish. And once you start adding affordable units, cuts into the ability to do that. So we would greatly prefer not including any affordable units, consistent with the way the regulations are for the CDD1 zone.
Lastly, again, if we were to consider a requirement in this particular regulation change, a certain percentage of rooftop space be used for solar heating or otherwise. I see you putting in about EV charging stations, bike share systems. What's the position that you and your client would be having about that?
No, I would need to get back to you on the proposal for solar panels. I know that the simple requirement of including solar panels is sometimes difficult because occasionally you need to put that electricity back onto the grid. So it's not always as simple of a matter of just simply slapping on solar panels. But I'd want to get back to you, about that suggestion.
Thank you very much for an excellent presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Sadi, Joseph, you're muted.
Through you to Attorney Nuff, is there only one entrance and exit to this, to the residential area?
Well, the current plan actually shows two, so you can come in off of Bridgeport Avenue and sort of
Okay.
sneak your way around, but I think as a practical matter, most of the folks will come down Lansdale and enter here.
Okay, all right. Lansdale is the main entrance and exit.
Yeah, and what's important to know is there is an existing curb cut there leading back to the commercial development. So as I indicated, the traffic report that we submitted shows that there will be less traffic coming, on Bridgeport Avenue and in the area than if we were to re-tenant the existing buildings.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chair, I've got a question.
Yep.
Mr. Nuff, if the minimum acreage is 15 acres, how do you get from 15 acres into doing a subdivision that would have 11 acres?
Well, it's really a two-step process, David, because we want to ensure, frankly, for the city's benefits, that we are required to redevelop the commercial component. So the threshold question is like, when you first submit an application for something like this, you have to have a minimum of 15 acres. But once the special permits are granted, then you go back to the underlying zone in terms of its requirements for minimum acreage for the commercial components. And then under our proposed regulation, you have to have a minimum of 10 acres for the multifamily components. Listen, we didn't really have to do that, but we also understand that if we were to simply propose multifamily residential and say, oh, by the way, this is what we want to do too, you would understandably be saying to us, well, how do we know that you're going to do that? And what this regulation is designed to do is to give the commission and the city 100% assurance that we are going to do what we're showing you this evening. And therefore, it's a two-step process of, in order to take advantage of this regulation, you must have a minimum of 15 acres. But once you do and submit the various special permit applications, then you could go back, revert to the underlying zone for the commercial and for the minimum of 10 acre for the multifamily.
And Attorney Nuff, what you are proposing as a fail-safe against ignoring the redevelopment of the commercial is just a zoning permit. It's not a building permit and a CO. So you could theoretically get a zoning permit to do enhancements and demolition on the existing portions of the retail space, but not actually finish it.
We'd actually talked about that with David and Joe. Listen, we're happy to have a further discussion about how to create a greater assurance and security for the board that that we actually do complete the commercial redevelopment. If there were suggestion that we couldn't get a CO for the residential unless and until we complete the commercial aspect of this, we can certainly talk about that. I think you have enough assurance, but if you want sort of a belt and suspenders, we can certainly discuss that. But certainly our intention is to obviously redevelop the commercial portion as well.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Mr.
Yes,
Castagnoli.
Mr. Chairman, I'll throw you to Dave. Dave, were you satisfied with that explanation of the acreage?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
Okay, I thought I saw a perplexed look on your face
Yeah,
after that explanation.
There's a lot going on here, so it's overall it's a good proposal. I'm I'm trying to, in my head, get the jump from, is a special permit use, multifamily residential subject to the following, and we have, the 15 acres, and for the purpose development shall mean the removal, da, 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 da. And I'm just, when something is developed in our regulations, and there's a standard in the regulations, if you don't meet the standard, and this is saying that the standard should be 15 acres. I'm just in my head trying to make the leap that Mr. Nuff talked about, from starting out with 15 acres and then, once it's built, the acreage could be something less in accordance with the rest of the regulations. So
David, perhaps a good way to think about this is, what are we protecting against? So we know that I don't think there's any other parcels in the CDD3 that this would apply to. And so I'm trying to understand if there's a specific harm that we're trying to address or to preclude, what that might be. So the point is that unless you have 15 acres, you can't even submit an application for multifamily. And at that same time that you submit an application for a special permit application for multifamily, you are required to also submit a special permit application for the redevelopment of the remaining commercial components on their property. They are required, they're mandatory to go hand in hand. Once that just gets you in the door. Once you're in the door with having 15 acres and proposing special permit applications for both the commercial and residential, then you simply revert to what's in the regulations currently. Then this is just to make sure that you can get in the door so that you are required to redevelop the commercial as well and come forward with a plan for the redevelopment of that commercial. Once you're in the door, then that 15-acre issue goes away.
What would be the downside of going right to 11 acres from the get-go?
Probably none. But we said 15 to give you further assurance. I mean, keep in
No,
mind,
I understand that, but
Right.
again, if it becomes somewhat clouded water because of a potential change, and I understand you might want to sell the residential to someone who manages residential, or create a different entity to manage commercial and another one to manage residential. I understand the potential benefit of that, but if it creates clouded water, then why not just go to 11 to begin with? Does that open up?
I would be
more
happy to make.
sites?
We would be happy to have the change to 318.214.1 be changed from a minimum of 15 to a minimum of 11.
Does that now include other properties in CDD3, or don't you know?
I don't know, but I doubt it.
Yeah. Okay. This is a public hearing, and if there's no further questions from the board, of course, you will have more time to consider it and to ask questions later. But if there's nothing now, and David, you don't feel like you need to do an overview before the public hearing, or would you like to address the board before the public hearing?
There's really no overview. I mean, the application speaks for itself. I think it's a good application. And as long as we have the tie-in and the language to guarantee those commercial buildings get done, I guess the question is why stop it? If we're looking to make a change, why stop at the 11,000 and just make it the conforming 10,000? The only unknown in that is I would have to, if the board wanted to know, gee, how many 10,000 foot parcels are there in the CDD3? I'd have to get together with our GIS folks and run that statistic to see if there's more than one parcel. If the board likes the concept and doesn't mind the concept on other parcels, if we have other 10-acre parcels, then great. If the board's comfortable with this particular situation and it being on this unique site, and having the higher number to sort of limit it to this situation, then that's fine too. So that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you. I appreciate that perspective. So without objection, we will open up the public hearing. If any member of the public would like to speak, please state your name and address for the board, and try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes. You can wave like this, or there's a way to electronically raise your hand to speak, and David would be the concierge of that.
I will recognize the speakers. I just need someone to raise a hand. Okay, the first one is Donna Dutko.
My name is Donna Dutko. My address is 236 Buckingham Avenue. I think that this is a great redevelopment of that site. It's been degraded for a long time, decades, and I think it's a positive addition to the town. One request, though, as I believe it was Mr. Sadi brought up, was 30% affordable. They've taken away the affordable housing aspect from CDD 1, and the more full price units that you add to the city's inventory, the less affordable housing that we have, and it's going to push affordable housing back into residential districts, which we don't want to have happen.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate your thoughts.
Okay, does anyone else like to speak? If so, please wave your hand. I'm going to scan the screens. I do not see anyone waving their hand. I do not see anyone raising their hand electronically either. Going once, wave your hand. Going twice, wave your hand. Seeing no one waving their hand on the third ask, Mr. Chair, there appears to be nobody else who would like to speak.
Hey,
Okay,
David, if I could, let me share my screen one more time. I wanted to just bring up the city's GIS. So here's the city's GIS. The over here to the left, sort of like the brighter pink, is the CDD2. And then in the cross-hatched, I won't even begin to describe what this color is. Here's the CDD3. Doesn't extend a particularly long distance, but if you go up and down the CDD3 zone, I think you're hard pressed to find a parcel that is larger than ours or larger than 10 acres. So obviously here, this is our parcel here that's now highlighted in yellow. So, I mean, the vast majority, and that's sort of the point, the vast majority of the properties along Bridgeport Avenue, both in Devon and in the CDD3, are very, very small parcels, which has really been a huge hurdle for the redevelopment of those parcels. This one is obviously significantly larger, and it faces other challenges in terms of, finding users that can use this much space, but obviously it's also very deep. So I think if you want to change it to 11 acres, I'm pretty certain that we would still be the only one. Let me see what this one is. Oh, there's one other.
well, you could merge them.
10.91.
So,
No, actually 11 would work.
right,
This is
you
10.9.
you could combine some lots to get there.
Without question. You can always acquire a collection of parcels, but I doubt that you could acquire them that would have the required depth of keeping the multifamily residential 200 feet from Bridgeport Avenue.
Right, and I'm not saying that it's not a good idea. I'm just saying that there's
I know.
potential for residential use on a commercial corridor. I think is going to be part of the future of
but really the beauty of
suburban
this
redevelopment.
is we're maintaining the integrity of the commercial corridor and
Right.
putting the multifamily in the rear directly adjacent to the other, residential uses and directly across the street from Jonathan Law. I mean, candidly, there was a lot of interest in the site for warehouse distribution and those sorts of uses, which
Understood.
frankly would have been wildly inappropriate for, next to a high school. I don't know that you want to have, multiple tractor trailers and vans making last mile deliveries, out of this location.
Understood. Okay, is there, again, we'll ask again with any new information from the applicant. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak?
And scanning the screens, Mr. Chair. I see no one waving their hand. I see no one raising an electronic hand either. Going once, anyone would like to speak? Going twice, anyone would like to speak? Last time, would anyone like to speak? Mr. Chair, I see no one raising their hand.
Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Is,
Mr. Chair, just a point of information.
Yep.
If we close the public hearing, do we not have to have a vote within a much shorter period of time if we ask for an extension? If we don't vote on it tonight, do we have to keep it open until next week or next 2 weeks?
we don't need to keep the public hearing open. We can, if.
You have 65 days to vote once you close. So,
Yeah.
you have
So we could
quite a
still
bit of time.
discuss it. We could still discuss it, and we would be able to get more information, but the public would not.
Well, no, let's be clear, Mr. Chairman. If you want something more from us, we couldn't offer that either. So,
Right.
I mean, you certainly have the ability to close the public comment portion, but not the public hearing itself, if you want to hear more from us.
Okay, so thank you for correcting me on that, Attorney Nuff. Is there anyone who would like to? Well, I think we can close the public comment. Is there anyone who feels we should leave the public hearing open?
I do, Mr. Quish, and I have some other questions for Mr. Sulkus to help us be guided on what we're going to do tonight, if I might.
Sure, go ahead.
Mr. Sulkus, do you know approximately how many parcels there are in the CDD 3, which would include this proposed project?
I believe there are 111 parcels in the CDD 3.
Okay, but we don't know at this point how many might be subject to a 9-acre, or 7-acre, or even 11-acre. Is that fair?
That is correct. I did, in anticipation of this application, at least check to see what would hit the 15-acre threshold, and there's only one parcel, this one.
Mr. Quish, if I might be heard briefly, I have 3 concerns. One, the 2 have already been addressed. One is the issue of affordable housing and the issue of solar, but I have very serious concerns about the traffic, especially if you're having that one Lansdale Street servicing a high school, servicing the businesses. And I've read the traffic study report. I'm not suggesting that I have all the answers on that, but I'm suggesting that there might be some issues we have to look at to address traffic in that area. I mean, to say that it's going to increase 10 or 15 vehicles at a certain time, I don't think is appropriate. So we might want to look at maybe getting further activity from either the police or fire department, or some way of finding out what the real traffic is going to be. Because I can tell you, it's in our district. I go through regularly, and from 4 to 6 p.m. that whole Lansdale Avenue is a bottleneck, and coming out the area where the Walgreens is substantially difficult, because when you look towards the high school, there's a substantial vision blockage based on the vegetation and buildings there. So it might be worth it to get at least the police department study to verify the comments made by the traffic engineer that's hired by the applicant. I again think we should be putting in some requirements of affordable housing and solar. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, please, Etan.
Attorney Sadi, question, what do you mean by look into or you have questions regarding the affordable housing? I'm not following.
Well, my point was, as I argued that through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Hirsch in response, was that we should, and Ms. Dutko certainly made my point much better than I did, but this is housing stock. We're not making a portion of that be affordable housing. And we're going to get to a point where the moratorium's over. We're going to have substantial growth in housing. And if we don't have a proper stock of affordable housing, then it's going to go back into the residential areas that are smaller lots But 8:30 is going to be an issue. That's what my comment is.
So what you're saying is by not allocating affordable housing to this project, you run the risk of having to allocate affordable housing into residential zones.
That's accurate.
Is that
Someday.
someday in the future?
Someday in the future, that's what's going to happen.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, in response to Attorney Sadie, a couple of things. Certainly, under the rules in Milford, if we were to submit a special permit application, we would be required to go to the police commission. Number two, Attorney Sadie indicated that he had read the traffic report, and we appreciate that. Mike Dion, who's a professional traffic engineer with BL Companies, is on the call this evening if you'd like to hear from him. But what he's showing is that a significant diminution in the amount of cars for the proposed development as we depicted it here this evening, as compared to re-tenanting the existing sites. So certainly back in the day when Kmart was active and the rest of the retail buildings were active, there was far more traffic in the area generated by this site than if we were to redevelop the site as we're proposing this evening. And I've had a text exchange with my client with regard to the affordable. We will agree to a minimum of 5% of the project being deeded as affordable.
And what about the maximum?
I'm sorry?
You said the minimum. What's the maximum?
Well, no, I mean, so we would, if you had a minimum of 5%, that's what we would offer. 5% of 100. Was that?
Okay.
What's your maximum? Give me the minimum. What's the maximum?
Would that be our maximum as well? We would offer 5%.
Thank you.
So anyway, this is not a negotiation at this point. It is a matter of the board's discretion to grant it with whatever caveats we have. And we do have a second bite at the apple in terms of this becoming a special permit when there's actually a site plan and a development proposed. So there's an opportunity now with the zone change to add some language for affordable and or renewables or efficiency. There's also a second opportunity to do that at the time of a special permit and site plan.
And just as a reminder, Mr. Chairman, Mike Dion is on the call tonight. If you want to hear a short traffic discussion.
Mr. Sadie, would you like to hear from the traffic engineer?
The report is fine. The one thing I suggest doesn't take into account is the traffic when school opens in the morning and when it closes in the afternoon, and any sporting events that are going on. If that's in his report, I'll listen to him, but I don't think I saw it in his report. I'm looking at the report right now.
So would you like to pose that question to the traffic engineer is my question.
Certainly, I'll listen to it.
Sure.
Mike, go ahead.
Sure. For the record, Mike Dion with BL Companies. Typically what we looked at was the AM commuter peak, which is 7 to 9 a.m., which is right when the school would be opening. So that's one aspect that we looked at. We did not look at a 2 o'clock or about 2 to 3 hour for when school will be getting out, just because there's not data for that. So when we go to a special permit, and due to the size of the development, it would be going to OSTA as well. That's when we would actually get into more traffic, like a traffic study. So if that's a requirement that you would want us to look at, we would definitely take traffic counts at the 2 to 3 hour, as well as the 4 to 6 p.m. hour for the PM commuter peak. Typically, though, on the roadway itself, you're right, there's not as much traffic during that 2 to 3 hour, but as we are across the street from a school, we would definitely take a look at it for you. There would just be less traffic coming out of the main site itself at that time as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sadie.
Thank you very much. I have nothing further.
Attorney Nuff, if we look at the site, there is a what you're calling the primary egress entry is off Lansdale, but there is actually 2 more curb cuts. One that goes through the Taco Bell, and then there's one that goes to the front retail that will they still have access to the residential, or will they be somehow blocked off?
You know what? You're actually right. I mean, so I'm looking at the plan as well, and I can put this back up. It appears that you can continue to travel between Taco Bell and Walgreens and the site itself. I mean, we haven't gotten, frankly, to that level of detail of determining where the curbs are going to be.
But you're not going to eliminate the curb cut at what's presently the liquor store.
No. I mean, in fact,
So there will be three entrances. There will be three entrances.
Yes.
The same three entrances that exist now would exist in what you're envisioning, at least at this point.
Right, exactly. So if you were leaving the site in the morning and you were heading to, if you're heading east on Route 1, you would likely just go through the Ocean State Job Lot parking lot, because no one's going to be there at that time in the morning.
Right.
So I mean, you'd have the ability to travel through there without interruption.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that curb cut between Taco Bell and Walgreens, unfortunately, has very limited access. You can only turn right when you come out heading into the northern portion of Bridgeport Avenue. I don't think you can take a left-hand turn into it, but it's very limited. I understand it's there. I understand there, but I think it's much more limited than would expect.
Well, I think you're accurate. I think it's a right turn only.
It is.
Okay. And again, more specifics would come out in a special permit site plan review. Is there thinking in the board that we should consider what we have and further the discussion at our next meeting, and or is there agreement that we should consider it and vote tonight?
It's my preference that we consider the three areas: traffic, affordable housing, and solar or other renewable energy sources, to appropriately craft it. Let Mr. Nuff and his client hear what we have to say, and they can say yay or nay if they want to go forward on it at that point. I think that we should at least give that opportunity to make sure that we're protecting ourselves from 830 challenges in the future.
Okay. Anyone else feel like they want to speak to that same issue?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Sadi. I do think the 830G it's an important issue, as is the solar and the charging stations. I think we should, we should talk more about it.
Okay. So without objection, we will, we've closed the public comment. We'll keep the public hearing open so we can interface with the applicant at our next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
David, do we need to have a motion to that effect, or can we do it without objection?
You do it without objection. You're basically continuing the application.
Okay, without objection, no one? Okay, very good.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next order of business is 975 Bridgeport Avenue, Zone CDD3, petition of John Klein Esquire for a special permit with site plan review for an indoor recreational facility, X throwing, on map 43, block 214, parcel 42, of which AMJ Properties is the owner. The applicant has the floor.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jonathan Klein. I'm an attorney, partner with the firm of Parlotori Law Group. My office is at 1057 Broad Street in Bridgeport. And I'm here representing Crazy Horse X Throwing and Lounge LLC. The principal of that entity is Leonard Alterio, and he's on this video meeting as well. This is a site plan and special permit application for the site at 975 Bridgeport Avenue. It's located in the CDD3 zone. And the site is in an existing strip mall of 12,215 square feet. The unit where the application relates to is 2,832 square feet. There are 6 units in this existing strip mall. The proposed use is for this axe throwing lounge. Now you might have, what is axe throwing? I never knew what axe throwing was till I took a look at this. Axe throwing, I can analogize it to darts, except you're using a hatchet, which is bigger than a dart. And it's not the kind of axe or hatchet that you would use to chop wood. It's not as sharp. It's designed, these things are designed specifically for this activity. It's an activity that's become more popular in recent years around the country. It's not unique to, this is not the first one in Connecticut. It's an entertainment type of a thing. It's a sport type of a thing. It's done on a competitive basis as well in some places. And it's, like I said, it's like darts. It's throwing axes from a distance of, I think it's about 12 feet usually, at various types of targets. There are 9 lanes proposed here for axe throwing. And the other feature of this is there's a room with a gun simulator. Mr. Sulkus, if you could please put up the revised proposed interior renovations so we could see that. There's no firearms involved here. Thank you. There's no firearms involved here in the gun simulator room. It's basically a simulator. It's like a very similar to a training device that law enforcement uses. I should mention, as a segue, you're talking about law enforcement. Mr. Alterio is a Bridgeport police officer. He's been a police officer almost 24 years. Safety and security consciousness are uppermost in his mind. It just so happens his wife is a nurse too. Safety, health, things like that are very important to the Alterios. As you see, there's a waiting area where customers can come in next to the reception area. There is seating planned for 25 people. There's tables there outside the walls of the gun simulator room. And then further down the corridor, if I can call it that, at the end, there's a bar there, a small bar that has seating for 5 people. It's estimated or expected there would be about 40 patrons using this facility at a time. There is going to be, you see there's a kitchen there, no actual prepared foods though. What the food fare that's expected would be such things as hot dogs, pizza that would be, frozen pizza would be heated in a small pizza oven, soup, popcorn, things like that. But there's no actual cooking that's going to be going on at the site. They are going to be applying for a liquor permit if they get this approval. And one of the things that was mentioned by Mr. Sulkus in his staff review is the parking situation there. There are 41 parking spaces for the 6 tenant uses in this development. But that should be plenty sufficient for what's planned here. Right now, you have the other tenants there. You have the Kim Yami Sushi, which is a small takeout place, and they have in the statement of use, their hours are listed. There are no overlapping hours between the sushi takeout place and the axe throwing use. There's the Dragon 168 Chinese takeout place, which does have some overlapping hours, although I want to emphasize the axe throwing lounge is proposed to be closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. So it's a it's a 5-day-a-week operation, but not Mondays and Tuesdays. So in those days, there's no overlapping parking issues with any of the other uses in this development. One of the uses, or one of the spaces in the existing strip mall is currently vacant. Then you have the Viola Wine and Liquor store, which also has some overlapping hours on Wednesdays and Thursdays for a 4-hour period, Fridays from 4 to 9 p.m. Saturdays, it would overlap from 11 to in the morning to 9 p.m. Sundays from 12 to 6. And then you have, finally, there's a storefront church there called Iglesia Fuego y Unción, which has services presumably on Sunday mornings. They haven't, their hours are not posted in front of the building, so I'm not sure exactly what their hours are. But I want to emphasize that all these other uses are in and out uses. There's 2 takeout places, there's a wine and liquor store, and there's a infrequently used church space. So people coming to get, well, first of all, the sushi space has no overlapping business hours, so don't even really need to consider that. The Chinese takeout, people come in, come out. No one is typically there for a very long period of time. The wine and liquor store, you come in, you make your purchase, you go out. Depends how long anybody would be there. Depends how you shop. If you shop like me, you're in and out of there in 3 minutes. You shop like my wife, maybe you're there for 15 minutes. And then, and again, the church has presumably Sunday worship hours in the morning. I don't know if they have Bible study sessions at other times, but it's a lightly used thing. So you have in and out use here. There's going to be very little overlapping, and with the proposed use of the axe throwing lounge. And I honestly don't see the 41 parking spaces that are available for this strip mall as being anything less than adequate here for everybody's space. The input that Mr. Sulkus received from the various other departments, everyone else is on board, has nothing negative or no objections to state for this use. Nothing's going to be, nothing's going to change about the footprint of the building or anything like this. It's just the interior renovations which will be done. And if you have questions for me, if you have any questions for Mr. Alterio, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, I have a couple.
Excuse me. Yep, excuse me. David, would you just explain to us why this is in front of us and not just a permitted use?
Because it's indoor recreation, and as indoor recreation, it's a special permit. Simple as that.
Okay. All right. So that's anywhere in this zone is
correct.
If
you're recreating inside, it's a special permit.
Like the tennis center.
Tennis center. I'm not sure it's in that zone. I think that's a different zone, but in this particular zone, an indoor recreational facility, which that's what we classified this as, is a special permit. That's right.
Okay. Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
Yes.
Yep. Go, Joe.
Attorney Klein, what is in this space right now?
It's vacant right now. What was there before? I think Mr. Alterio can tell us what was there before.
It was a produce market. It used to be a produce market where people would come in and go grocery shopping. So the parking facility was probably, you probably had your time where people would go shopping and get their milks, vegetables, and what have you. It was a small produce market.
Okay.
Thank you.
At one time.
And Attorney Klein, is it common in other locations to have an axe throwing lounge serving liquor?
I would venture to say it would be unusual not to have that combination.
Unusual not to have it. So in most other lounges of this nature, they do have liquor being served.
That is my understanding.
Okay. Is there any other type of of this operation in the state of Connecticut that allows that?
I took a quick look actually while we're waiting. I know there's I believe there's one in Manchester. Mr. Alterio may be aware of others.
Yeah, you have Montana Knights, which is in Orange. You have Oxford, Axe Throwing is in Oxford, and they all have liquor licenses, sell liquor, and they also have foods in those locations. So it's pretty much the same situation, just that, you know, we're looking to open it up here in Milford. There's other towns that have it. Wallingford has one. If you really go on, you know, I don't know them all, but I know there's those couple right off the top because they're close to the facility.
All right, thank you.
And I just want to say one thing in regards to the church hours. They start at 8 o'clock in the morning and they're done at 1. And then that empty space is now considered a roofing facility where they sell roofing products to homeowners. So there's not going to be much traffic except for a customer coming in to sit down with the owner of that business and purchase roofs, and they'll send their crews out. There's no products or no nothing there inside that office. It's just an office.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Any comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Staddy here, Mr. Quish.
Yep.
It's more of a statement. As a practicing lawyer, I've had matters with Attorney Klein. I suggest I see nothing would conflict with my ability to discharge my duties as a member of the board. I may have run across the applicant in his official capacity, but again, I see no reason I cannot discharge my duties. I see no conflict. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Eitan Hirsch, I've known Attorney Klein for many years, and I have no conflict with him either.
Thank you. I appreciate that candor from both of you.
Thank you.
So, David, if this was just a bar that had darts that were shaped like hatchets, would there be a special permit? Or would there be?
No, I don't think so. Because, you know, that's, you know, a bar, you're going to drink and presumably eat. And it's got some extra recreation. You know, this is, you know, in a way, this is more like a bowling alley. You go to bowl. Oh, and they also happen to have drinks.
Okay, yeah. I'm just trying to get that subtle difference. And you know, if it's a commercial space and it permits. Anyway, you answered my question. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board at this point?
Well, it was mentioned that these axes are duller and smaller maybe than a normal axe. Is there an example, Mr. Alterio, that you may have?
I don't have one to show you, but they're small hatchets. They're 12 inches. You're actually throwing them it's a wood target there's rubber mats on the bottom, on the sides, and on the top. So there's not going to be no recoil or ricochet back to a patriot that is throwing it. It's going to drop totally to the ground. I bought these units from a company out of Texas, and it's a different type. It's a virtual type of axe throwing, and he's the one that designed all this stuff with the rubber mats around the floor and on the walls, where they do show, you know, on the regular axe throwing where they come back and they come back at the party. These will not. I don't have an axe that I can show you, but the regular axes that you can buy at a Home Depot, they're handheld, the small little hatchets.
A virtual axe?
It's basically, I have there's 36 blocks that are bolted together. It's an end grain, and we have a machine that comes from the back and shoots down on the target. So you can play tic-tac-toe. There's virtual zombies. There's Othello. There's different types of games that you can play and keep score. So it's not just throwing a hatchet at a board with a target. There's some fun in it, and people will enjoy it. And it's actually it's very big right now. So I have 5 units that are virtual, and the other 3 are going to be just the old school ones until I decide if I don't want them, then I'm going to switch those out myself and use them all.
To be clear, when Mr. Alterio is talking about virtual, the hatchets are not virtual. The hatchets
No, the hatchets are real, but the game itself is a virtual. It's just like the golf simulator. If anyone has done a golf simulator, when you're hitting the ball, it's the same thing. You see the ball going into the grass. It's the same thing with the hatchets. It's just a virtual game. So.
Great, thank you.
The axes actually fly through the air though, or no?
They fly through the air. Each lane is enclosed, so it's not like, you're going to hit anybody. So the walls, it's 6 foot apart, 14 feet long, which you have a fence that is so you can see through them to the next party if you wanted to. But the hatchets will not go past or go anywhere except in that one lane. So the safety will be there. Yes. And those dotted lines are the ones where the fence, that's where all the fencing is. But it's all V-groove pine. The back of it's got plywood, and it's got a rubber mat throughout the whole thing, all the way up to the top. So again, there's not going to be no recoil on it.
All right.
All right.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. I would ask that anyone who would like to speak to the issue to state their name and address for the board, keep their comments to around 3 minutes. And you can wave on the screen, or you can indicate electronically that you'd like to speak, and David Salkus will.
Okay, so I'm looking at our one screen now, and I see no hands, no waves, nothing electronic. Going once, going twice. No one would like to speak. Okay,
if anyone sees any reason to keep the public comment open, then we will close it. Is there anyone who feels like we should, any reason not to address this and vote on it tonight? Okay, seeing none, I would hear a motion.
I'll do a motion.
Okay, Mr. Cater.
This is pertaining to 975 Bridgeport Ave, Zone CDD 3. I move to approve as presented the petition of Jonathan Klein Esquire for a special permit with site plans review for an indoor recreational facility, axe throwing, on map 43, block 214, parcel 42, of which AMJ Properties, Inc. is the owner.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing that, Meg, if you would please read the roll, call the roll.
Ms. Austin,
With the motion,
Mr. Castagnoli,
Yes.
Mr. Hirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Cater,
With the motion,
Mr. Collegian,
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
Motion.
Mr. Zaharides,
With the motion.
and Chairman Cush.
I'm also with the motion. It passes unanimously. I'd like to wish the applicant good luck.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Next order of business is 352 Wheelers Front Road, Zone RA. Petition of Thomas Lynch Esquire for special permit with site plan review for church rectory and off-site parking facility on map 96, block 915, parcel 10, of which Cornerstone Christian Center, Inc. is the owner. The applicant has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just for the record, my name is Thomas Lynch. I'm an attorney with the law firm Lynch, Trimvicki, and Boynton. And my office is located here in Milford at 63 Cherry Street. And I'm presenting this application to you tonight along with Ron Wasmer, who's also in on the Zoom. Ron prepared the site plan for this project. We've actually been working with the church for a little over 2 years for the development of this site. And the property is owned by the Cornerstone Christian Center. The Cornerstone Christian Church has been here in Milford for over 25 years. They started off with their facility over on Meadow Street. And then about 10 or 12 years ago, they purchased the former Pyramid Shriner site at 349 Wheelers Farms Road, where they have their sanctuary and assembly hall. And in 2019, they purchased this property located at 352 Wheelers Farms Road. This is a single-family residence, 3-bedroom, single-family residence on 1.47 acres. And the application before you tonight is to have approval for use of this residence as the rectory for the church. They're going to maintain an apartment inside of the house for visiting speakers who may come, guests of the church. They're going to have offices there. And the main development is the construction of a fairly large parking lot consisting of some 97 parking spaces, so that they can use then this parking lot for overflow parking for large events and Sunday service that would take place across the street at 349 Wheelers Farms Road. So in the zone, this is the properties located in the RA zone. In the residential zones, a church can be a special use with a special permit application. So that's part of what we're seeking for, is for the house to actually be utilized for church purposes. But also, as Ron will be going through in a minute, he's designed the parking lot. It's received approval already from the Inland Wetlands Agency, because the construction of the lot falls within the review area of the agency. So there was already a permit issued. We also received a approval from the Milford Health Department for the reconstruction of the septic system that's on the site. But as noted in David's report to you, that approval had a time period for the permit. So we're beyond that time period. Ron has submitted a application back to the health department. It's just a procedural matter. He's already had discussions with the department. It's just a matter of refiling the paperwork and having the septic plan approved. So that in conjunction with all this as well, per the requirements of the city engineer, there's going to be a sidewalk constructed on the frontage of the property along Wheelers Farms Road. It's actually on the westerly side of Wheelers Farms Road. That sidewalk will go the length of the property, and it will be long enough so that it will then be directly across from the current sidewalk on the church property at 349 Wheelers Farms. And I spoke to David earlier today. There was some discussion with the traffic division of the police department. Both Ron and I put in a call to Sergeant Craniac of the traffic division. It may very well be a condition, or some part of their recommendations may be to have a crosswalk across Wheelers Farms Road where the two sidewalks end. If that's the case, we obviously have no objection to that. But what I wanted to stress is that there's going to be shuttle service from the parking lot at 349 Wheelers Farms over to the new parking lot when needed. Again, during church services and during large events, there will be a constant shuttle service bringing people back and forth. So there really is no intention on the church's part so that people will be walking up the street and then crossing Wheelers Farms Road during the busy traffic times. So I think the agenda had all of the city department reviews. I did want to note that we did appear before the Zoning Board of Appeals back in 2019, actually November of 2019, because the parking lot actually exceeds the RA zone lot coverage minimum requirement, or actually maximum allowed coverage. We did receive a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals to allow the parking lot. It now has a lot coverage of the site of some 55% of the site, and 25% is permitted in the zone. But we did receive approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals, so that's been taken care of. And as I said, the city engineer has reviewed the plans. There's a comment that he had made about making sure that there's adequate snow shelf availability on the site. I think Ron will address that. He's confident that the particular area and he's set forth on the plans as the snow shelf will be adequate to service removal of the snow during large storms. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Ron. He can go through the elements of the site plan. It's a pretty straightforward application, and happy to answer any questions that the board may have when we're done. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, Ronald Wasmer, professional engineer, land surveyor with an office at 158 Research Drive, Milford, Connecticut. Here representing Cornerstone Church. I'm going to briefly walk you through the site plan. David, if I could ask you to share the site plans with us, that would be great. So this is the site plan on the screen now. You can see that it fronts on Wheelers Farm Road. The property to the north is the office complex, and I believe they just built some apartments to the rear of that. You're probably familiar with that. To the south is also that it's also owned by Milford developers, but that happens to be where the power lines are, the high voltage power lines. And then in the southwest corner of our property is a portion of wetlands. You'll see towards the front center is the existing house that's going to remain as is. There's a current driveway that serves that house. We're going to expand that slightly to allow for some parking adjacent to the house. And then we're proposing a new driveway at the western edge, or the southern edge of the property to access Wheelers Farm Road. There's a sheet that we'll discuss shortly that will discuss the sidewalks. This plan shows a sidewalk extending along the frontage of the property as required by Milford Public Works Department. We'll just, you'll see the shuttle loading area designated towards the middle center of the parking lot. We'll go to the next page. I'll just touch base on this briefly. Is the grading and drainage plan. So we have a significant amount of underground drainage facilities proposed to handle runoff from the parking lot. This plan was presented to the Milford Inland Wetland Agency, and it's been received approval by them. The next page is a landscaping plan. So there's quite a few significant trees on the site, but the majority of them will be removed to construct the parking lot. In the southwest corner, the wetlands will remain, and there'll be no trees removed from the wetlands. And then we're enhancing the parking area with a significant amount of street trees, screening, evergreen screening, and the landscaping meets your landscaping requirements for off-street parking lot. We also have an erosion control plan. That's part of your site plan requirements. I don't know that there's too much to talk about there. We have a illumination plan that indicates the location of pole lights. The pole lights meet the illumination regulations of the city of Milford. Then we have a couple standard detail sheets that I don't know that there's much to talk about there. And then we'll go to the last page is the sidewalk plan. I just want to spend a second discussing that. So currently, the church has a sanctuary at 349 Wheelers Farm Road. You'll see that in the kind of the lower left corner of this plan. And there is a sidewalk along Wheelers Farm Road that was constructed when that was built originally for the Shriners, but the church took over this property in around 2010. So now we're proposing a parking lot on the western side of Wheelers Farm Road, and the requirements of Milford Public Works is that we construct sidewalk along the frontage of the property. So we took this to the next step. So we have sidewalks existing on one side of the road, proposed on the other side of the road. I've indicated on this plan that we're going to extend the sidewalks from the limits of our property across to the south, across the land of Milford developers. The sidewalk will be within the city's right of way, but this is where the high tension lines are. And then it extends about another 20, 30 feet further to the south. So then the terminus of the sidewalk on the west side of the road ends at the terminus of the sidewalk on the east side of the road. So known as jaywalking across the road per se. This plan does not indicate a painted crosswalk. That could be what the police department was looking for, and we're certainly happy to provide a painted crosswalk at this location. Other than what I just mentioned, I think it's a pretty straightforward project. It's more or less a parking lot for the church. It'll be used intermittently, mostly on Sundays. There is, again, just to reiterate, there's a shuttle that will run between the two properties. I presume the majority of the people will use the shuttle, but if someone does choose to walk, we're providing a sidewalk to safely get from one parcel to the other. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission or staff may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, there's just one other point, just to emphasize the zoning compliance of the plan. Section 519 of our regulations allows a parking lot to be utilized in conjunction with another parcel, such as what we're proposing here, as long as the parking lot is within 250 feet of the other property. So this has been measured out to be 152 feet. So I just wanted to make it for the record known that the utilization of the parking lot at 352 Wheelers Farms is zoning compliant with that section because of its proximity. Thanks.
Thank you. David, is there anything you'd like to preface the discussion with?
The applicant is proposing a change of use from an existing single-family dwelling located at 352 Wheelers Farms Road to a church rectory and a single-family dwelling as an accessory to the church, which will also provide parking for the existing church located at 349 Wheelers Farms Road. The parking as an accessory use is allowed through special permit under zoning regulation 313.13. The proposed parking lot is for 97 spaces. Section 5.1.9 requires the offsite parking to be within 250 feet of the main use. The plan shows a distance of 152. The applicant is proposing sidewalks and a possible crosswalk to get from the proposed use to the Cornerstone Christian Center on the opposite side of Wheelers Farms Road. The city engineer raised concerns about the proposed snow shelf areas not being easily accessible. Because of the septic system, the health department requires the applicant demonstrate compliance with the public health code to align with the change in the property use, which may be a condition of the board's approval. Overall, the proposed site plan is zoning compliant.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Castiglione? Muted.
On one side, you have the power line. What's on the other side?
Joe, if that was directed to me, I couldn't hear what you said.
You broke up, Joe.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, on one side, you have the power lines, right? What's on the other side?
I can answer that question.
Yeah.
To the north of the property is a landscape buffer that the landscape buffer belongs to the office building. Directly beyond that landscape buffer is the driveway that accesses the office building as well as the apartment complex that was recently constructed to the rear of that parcel. So our parcel is literally surrounded by the Milford developers' land, with the exception of our frontage on Wheeler's Farm Road.
Okay, and on the other side, you have the overhead power lines. Okay,
Yes. And those
All right.
power lines are on the property of Milford developers, which is in the office building / apartment complex.
okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cater?
The only thing is I just want to say was I agree with everything. The part about the painted crosswalks and possibly crossing signs, I think would be really critical. I mean, that part of the road can be a lot of traffic and dangerous. And Milford's had some issues with people crossing the road, so I'd like to see that definitely happen.
Yeah, that comes under the purview of the traffic division and the police department. So whatever they want us to do, we'll do.
Mr. Sadi?
Thank you. I guess I got a statement and a question for Attorney Lynch. In your years of practice, I'm sure you've never had to follow the axe throwing conversation.
No,
So
I've had a few things with Attorney Klein though that involve bars, but not the axe throwing.
So as I understand the plan, you're adding to the parking spots that are going to be used by the congregation.
This
Or you're not
parking
getting
lot-
rid of the original parking spots that are
Yeah.
around the church.
Right. So across the street, they have a fairly large parking lot. Now what we're going to do is add 97 more spaces on this parcel to be used in conjunction with the sanctuary, what we're calling the sanctuary building.
And a question I had, which I think kind of dovetails over Joe Castagnoli's, when you're moving south, it appears that you have to get an easement from somebody, either the city or the power lines, to extend the walkways. Is that the plan?
No, it's within the city right away, Bob, so we can put that in by right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? Yeah. I mean, I want to echo Mr. Cater's concern about if you're building the sidewalks, it's build it and they will come. So some people will walk down the sidewalk and want to cross, and there are elevation changes there that make the line of sight, potentially tenuous, and so I would just like to underpin some safety concerns there, whether it's a blinking yellow light or again, obviously, it is. So I guess the question to David: why don't we have direction from the police at this juncture for traffic and safety?
What happened was the submission, the original set came in, and then, Tom will give you more detail, but the sidewalk plan came in after. I believe that I did, when I transmitted both sets to everyone, but apparently the police department was unaware of that until today. They had some vacations and it was the holidays, so when they called today, they said they were unaware of that. So I'm assuming they're going to get Mr. Lynch some further comments on the crosswalk.
Yeah, and again, I want to stress that the utilization of this parking lot is going to be during the church services, and they're going to have a shuttle bringing people back and forth. So believe me, I understand. You put a sidewalk there, and the whole intent was to have the two sidewalks sort of dovetail. It makes sense to have whatever signage or a crosswalk painted or whatever the traffic division is going to want to have done there. It is what it is. We're going to have to do it. You can make it a condition of your approval, clearly.
Okay. This is a public hearing, so if there's no further questions or comments from the board, I will open up the hearing to the public. If you would like to speak to this issue, please state your name and address for the board and try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes. I see Carl is interested in speaking.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Carl Charles. I live on 7 Snug Harbor Road in Milford. I'm also a member of Cornerstone Christian Center Church. And I also, since May 1st, work as the Director of Operations at the church. We could definitely use the overflow parking, and I'd like to say that we are very supportive of the project, and we hope that you would be supportive of it as well. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Carl. Is there any other comments from the public?
Mr. Chair, I believe Carl is the only member of the public left. So
Okay.
the answer to that would be no.
I don't know. I see Blessing.
He's our technology person for the streaming.
Oh, okay.
So he's staff.
Okay. Very good. Well, seeing no one interested in commenting from the public, we will close the public comment period. Is there anybody see any reason to keep the public hearing open? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, and I would hear a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'll move to approve the petition of Thomas Lynch Esquire for a special permit with site plan review for church rectory and off-site parking facility on map 96, block 915, parcel 10, of which Cornerstone Christian Center, Inc. is the owner.
Great. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Oh, can we add to that though about the crosswalk? Just a condition that at minimum something's put in there. Can you add that?
You could. What would you like to see, Jim?
Well, I know we're going to see what the city wants, but what if they say nothing? I mean, I think at minimum there needs to be a painted crosswalk. I would like to see flashing lights. I don't know. Milford scares me when people get hit all the time. It's just so dangerous.
But I understand what you're saying, but I think that falls under the police department's jurisdiction.
Right, Jim, the police department has jurisdiction over where crossing lights go. I mean, certainly the crosswalk, we'd have no problem with this as a minimum. But the flashing lights that you see similar to Maple Street and North Street, that's all under the purview of the traffic division of the police department.
Actually, I was like kind of tongue in cheek.
I mean, you can make a conditional on approval of any improvements to the public right of way made. Recommend do something. Improvements to the public right of way if required by the police department or commission.
I'll add that to my motion.
Is that okay with you, Jim?
Yeah, I second that. That's good.
Okay, so we have an amended motion to include David's language, Meg, and then Jim is okay with a second on that. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Meg, if you would please call the roll.
Ms. Austin,
With the motion,
Mr. Castagnoli,
Yes.
Mr. Hirsch. Sorry, Eitan, you're muted.
With the motion.
Mr. Cater,
With the motion.
Mr. Collegian,
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
With the motion.
Mr. Zaharidis. Are you there, Mark?
With the motion.
Oh, okay, thanks. And Chairman Bush.
am also with the motion. Motion passes, and I'd like to wish you good luck with your project.
Yeah, thanks so much. Enjoy everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Next order of business is old business. I see none. Liaison reports, Mr. Sadi,
No report this month, sir.
nothing. Subcommittee reports, we have a regulation subcommittee next Wednesday. The agenda will be posted online. And for you, new member Eton, you are welcome to join in with, we have two subcommittees. One is a regulation subcommittee and one is the Plan of Conservation and Development. And I say this to you because you're a new member, but also to re-invite anybody else on the board if you would like to participate as a subcommittee member. Reach out to David, and as long as we don't end up with a quorum, we can have as many people on each of those two subcommittees that would like to participate. So if you're not a participant and you'd like to, please reach out to David. And I'd like to offer a welcome to you, Eton, if you'd like to do that. Next order of business is approval of minutes for the 1/4/2022 meeting. Do we have a motion? Approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of 1/4/22.
Oh, thank you, John. Second.
Second.
Okay, without objection, they're approved. Chair's report, a running conversation will be consideration of in-person meetings. Would anybody like to speak on that issue?
Wish I would, please. I really thought a lot about this and, I think we've got several options. And one thing that didn't come to my attention is that the Board of Education, maybe we cannot use the property because it's a Board of Education, it's an educational building, but they space themselves out. I know that the Board of Aldermen are in the City Hall chambers. They're pretty close, although I do see that they're wearing masks. I would like to get us back. I think that we can get more work done. I'm not suggesting do it next week, but I think we should, if we don't do it soon, we should keep this open every meeting to have a discussion of it.
Okay. Anyone else?
I second what Bob just said. I do think we have to continue the discussion and look to start moving back to in-person.
Okay, are we happy with, so whenever we decide to go back in person, it won't be the next meeting, it'll be 2 meetings hence because of the notification requirements. So am I accurate there, David?
Yeah, basically, I need a month because of how we advertise stuff. So we've already, for instance, advertised for the next meeting in February, which will be in person. But if you wanted to do the second meeting in February, if you voted that tonight, then this is plenty of time to make those arrangements. So really, anytime you want, but I need basically 4 weeks. So you can say whenever it is you want to go, and then we can do it.
Okay.
Why not just schedule it now for, end of February, early March?
I agree. I think either we look to move for the second meeting for February or the first meeting of March.
I agree.
Okay, I would hear a motion then.
Well, can I just say something too?
Yeah, well, we can discuss the motion after as well, but go ahead, Jim.
I'm just going to say I'm okay with that, but it kind of, I think at this point needs to be a little bit of a move-in thing. So you can pick that date, but at next meeting, if things are still bad, to be honest with you, right now, my house is quarantined. My daughter's house is quarantined. Everybody's getting it. I mean, it's crazy. So I couldn't be there. So I don't know what I would do. I mean, so I don't go to the meeting, and I'm okay. I'm assuming I'll be fine, everybody. And I do think this is going to pass within a week or so. But I think what we should do is every meeting say, are we still on time? And that would give us enough time to move it 2 more weeks, I would think. So, whatever the date Nancy said, first week, second week of March, I think is doable. But I do think the next meeting, we should again say we're still comfortable with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that okay with you, Nancy, to put us out for the first meeting in March for your motion? We'll get a second, discuss it, have a vote on it. And if it's a majority, then we would then have the first meeting in March scheduled as an in-person meeting.
Yeah, I think we need to, yes, my motion would be to move to in-person meeting for the first meeting of March.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Eton, second. Now we still can have a conversation and a discussion on the motion, if anyone would like to contribute.
Well,
I'd like to contribute if I could. I've heard Meg, and I've heard the the comments about we can't extend the microphones, but we certainly could space ourselves out and then have a common microphone, which is in the middle of the auditorium. Now we'd have to have safe practices. But I'm saying that there is a way we could be more than 32 inches or 20 inches apart like we normally are. I think we should consider those. I think that we should be in there, but we should also consider what are the appropriate options if we can't be right next to each other, fully masked.
Well, there's going to be, there's protocols in place for being in a Milford public building, which we would have to adhere to. And obviously, anybody who wants to wear a mask can wear it no matter what the protocols are. But there will be rules, and whatever they are. My concern is that we have members of the public come in. And if there is still a requirement for masks to be worn in a public building, and we have members of the public that come in and they are unwilling to follow those requirements. So my concern is that then we end up with some kind of an issue, right? Where somebody says to this person, you have to wear a mask, and they say, no, I'm not going to wear a mask. So I think we need to have David and have the city prepare for that potential eventuality. I mean, I don't want to be in a situation where we're in some kind of a battle. So I think we just need to protect against that.
So here's I guess I would propose this question. I understand, yes, we have public coming in, but so does the Board of Aldermen and so does the Board of Ed. So how about we ask them how they handled that situation, seeing
Good idea.
How the Board of Aldermen is in City Hall and Board of Ed is clearly they held it at Jonathan Law. So what did they do if somebody, let's ask the question. I mean,
good idea. No, I agree. So David, David, that'll be up to you to research that and to make sure that whatever protocols we can have in place, we will. And I think that's a good point, Nancy. I appreciate that. I think that we're probably more likely to have people come in. We will have architects and engineers and people. We haven't had many people speaking in the public.
I don't disagree. But if anybody watched any of when a lot of the stuff was going on with the Board of Ed, they clearly had people attending meetings. So
I agree. I mean, and I think your point is fine. If they have a best practice or a way that they are, preparing for an eventuality, then that's smart. Then let's follow what they're doing. That's a great idea. So we have a motion. We have a second. Is there any further?
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to be clear on this, that this is tentative, depending on where, the positivity rate goes. And I mean, if the positivity rate goes up to 30%, we're not going to go ahead. If it goes down to 10 again, then we can go ahead. Okay. I mean, it seems to be decreasing right now, which.
Well, I think that our timing is good for that, Joe, because we're not going for 1 month. So by the time next meeting happens, if there's a lot of red flags, we still have a month to alter. So I think it's a good plan that we have going, so that, again, if it's over, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Personally, I'm still pretty scared and I want to stay remote. but I'm just one vote, and so I'll make my vote the way I want to. But we have a motion, a second, and if there's no further discussion on the motion, I would ask Meg to call the roll. Okay, no further discussion. Meg, call the roll.
All right. Ms. Austin,
With the motion,
Mr. Castagnoli,
Yes.
Mr. Hirsch,
With the motion,
Mr. Cater,
With the motion.
Mr. Colichin,
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer,
I'm with the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
Motion.
Mr. Zaharides,
With the motion.
and Chairman Krish.
I am against the motion. Motion passes, and I hope it works out. You know, I don't know why I'm so scared, but I still am.
it's because it's very serious, Jim.
Nothing
I
wrong with
know
that.
it-
I just had COVID. I'm telling you, I've never been that sick in my life.
Well, thank God you look great now, so.
Yeah, I lost 10 pounds and I couldn't smell it. I lost my sense of smell and taste. I lost weight. It's terrible.
Well, I'm glad you're better, that's all.
Yep.
Okay, so we have staff report next.
Nothing to report this evening.
All right, great. Well,
So it's part of staff report, but I brought this up before, and I think that's either your report or Mr. Salkas's, but we've got to get education for the board. We had substantial changes over the course of the last legislative session. And I think that we should either look into hiring somebody to provide education to us. We got to know what the new changes are. I know that we're working on PUCD, and maybe by the next meeting or the next one at the end of the month, we can get an update from your committee. We've not heard from that committee for a long period of time as to timeframes. We also have a new member on the board that should learn some of these factors too. But we got to get some education. We got to get it moving because we're several months out from several of these issues that happened a long time ago when the law was changed, and we don't know what's coming forward. We should be aware of those and
I'm going to present.
better able to discharge.
I was going to say, I'm going to present to you, perhaps even by the next meeting. I've been working on a breakdown of the different changes in the state statutes. And part of that breakdown is also looking at our regulations, looking at the statute and then going to our regulations saying, oh, we're going to have to, change this or tweak that. I'm assuming that's the education you're talking about versus the new law that also talks about education.
Doesn't the new law require commission members to attend some official sanctified training?
Yes.
So good point, Mr. Sadi. Thank you. And Dave, if you could please in your chair report next meeting, come up with direction on how we comply.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Can I bring up another quick thing?
No.
Okay. Well, let me ask, how and when do we discuss about 975, the requirements? If we can't do it before, we can't, and I don't want to wait till the next meeting to discuss what you guys want or what we want as a committee. How and when do we discuss some of the requirements for passing that? We were talking about that, we shelved it.
What do we do? I'm lost. What are we talking about?
Well, for 975 Bridgeport Ave, we talked about, we were gonna try to maybe put in some requirements before we approved it, like solar roof, a couple ideas, affordable housing. How do we discuss it and when do we discuss it? I don't know when it's legal or not legal.
Yeah, so next meeting we can.
Right, you have to do it in a public forum. It has to be done at the meeting.
So that was the one that we kept open.
But my concern is when we do like right then, it's like we don't really have time to discuss it. So we discuss it. I don't really know what it is everybody wants to do. I mean, do we want to start 15 minutes early to discuss it, or is that okay? Or how do you normally do that?
No, I think I think we do it in a full public hearing.
Right.
Yeah, public comment is closed, but not public hearing.
Right.
So we can discuss it together at the next meeting.
Right.
You can think about it. between now and then and consider any stuff that you heard in the public.
Well, and maybe that's kind of my point. Maybe people should think about it, because I'd hate to, in front of other people in a public hearing, to start saying, what do you want? I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. How about this? How about that? We kind of maybe as a group should come up with what we think.
I have a suspicion that the applicant, after hearing your comments, will probably put something forward.
And Bob, I was glad that you really were strong about that too, because I was kind of leaning going with them, but I'm glad you did that.
So I mean, clearly for the record, you articulated the areas of concern, and a savvy applicant is going to come back with something. I'm going to chat with the applicant. As your staff, I can do that, and I can just say, hey, you heard what the board said. What do you want to propose? And we'll bring it to the board. Obviously, and any ideas you have as well, I mean, bring them as well. But yeah, I mean, it is what it. They are what they are. The recommendations what they are. So let's see what they come back with.
Just one of the real quick things. I know a lot of times solar panels come up, but sometimes I think solar ports might be easier and more manageable. It's just a thought. If they say that they're not good with the rooftop, maybe so. I don't know if they're planning solar portals or portals for cars to park under.
Oh, you mean like a parking lot with a solar canopy?
Yeah, if I don't know if they're planning on having, the ports, carports, or like a canopy. If they're doing that, it's probably easier to put them on that.
Jim, why don't you ask them? Ask them.
No, Jim cannot ask them. They are applicants.
Why?
Because
well, in the public hearing,
that's an
Dave, in the public hearing,
In the public hearing, you can't ask.
Yes.
That's what I meant.
I'm sorry. I thought you meant, hey, Jim, give him a call.
No. I mean, a public hearing, you ask them point blank, hey, what do you mean by the solar panel? Not ex parte. I'm saying in the public hearing.
And I'm okay with that. The only thing I just sometimes think that if we come prepared and we understand each other, kind of more of as a front, because Bob is saying something. I don't know. Does the rest of the group agree with him or not? It's kind of be nice if we all kind of are on the same page. But I think David's right. They already said they're going to do 5% affordable housing. I wouldn't be shocked if they said 10%.
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
The Board of Aldermen routinely caucuses. Is it legal for us to caucus?
It is.
Okay.
How would we go about doing that?
There you go.
You know what? I will find out. I will definitely do some research. I mean, it's a little bit uncommon when you have 100% one party to caucus, but I don't think it's outside the realm, and I think that's a good point, and I will research that and find out specifically what we can and cannot do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good point. So that if it's virtual, then it would be like similar to the executive session. It'd be a separate room.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Great point.
Or we could go to the bar and throw a few axes and
yeah. Have a virtual photo of Jim Quish up there.
Yeah, well, we might get a few shots in the forehead, but okay. Well,
to adjourn, Mr. Quish.
I think that's appropriate. Thank you.
All right, take care, everyone.
Good night, folks.
No exception.
Buddy, thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Adios.